Jenny Brown. Welcome to this week's MFB News. Hope everybody is well and positively glowing from that absolutely incredible weekend. It's very exciting for me this time of year because I'm a mum of a boy who is 15 years old and he plays hockey. So ever since September last year, but particularly through the winter, every weekend, no matter what the weather, and literally I've stood there in minus temperatures, in the dark, in the pouring down rain, watching him play hockey. But we've now moved on to cricket season. So this Sunday just gone in the afternoon, there I was on the Vine in Sevenoaks, which is a really charming cricket green, one of the oldest in the UK, for those who are interested, with a nice cold glass of something alcoholic in the sun, watching my son play cricket. It was absolutely joyous, honestly. But enough about me and how much I love the nice weather. What have we got for you this week? So this week is all about swap rates, mortgage pricing and the Renters' Rights Bill. We're going to be giving you lots of updates in terms of what's going on there. Some positive, some not so positive, but nonetheless very important for you guys to be aware of. Okay, so in terms of what we have seen with swap rates in the last few days, and just to caveat this by saying it's actually Tuesday morning that I'm recording this video. Normally I do it on a Wednesday morning, but for reasons that I simply shan't bore you with, we've gone in early this week. So the information by the time you receive it may be ever so slightly out of date, but actually it's good news. So I'm sure you'll forgive us for that for this one time only. So 2-year swap rates 3.635 compared to 1 month ago, they were 3.99 and 1 year ago 4.65. So broadly speaking, around 0.35% lower month on month and a whole 1% lower year on year. So that's really good news, and actually positive news for 5-year swap rates. So you'll remember that a 5-year swap under 4% used to be a thing that got me really kind of excited. 5-year swaps 3.634, 1 month ago 3.959 and 1 year ago 4.155. So again, we're circa 0.3% lower month on month and around 0.5% lower year on year. So really, really positive. And when we cast our minds back to last week, which is kind of, I guess, going to be really indicative of the direction of travel in terms of mortgage pricing from lenders, the key thing to know here is that rates have come down a little bit further, really opening the door for lenders to continue making their pricing reductions. And many of you will see this being mentioned in the press in terms of, particularly when someone large like HSBC makes a rate reduction, or Barclays, often you see headlines about lenders dropping rates down. So more of that to come, assuming swap rates continue to play ball. Now, not to sort of put a downer on this by any stretch of the imagination, because it is really, really good news. We have got the base rate meeting teed up for May. So the first thing you need to know about the base rate meeting is that there is 100% odds on in the city in terms of base rate coming down in May by 0.25%. Now, there are a couple of people that are thinking that maybe a couple of the MPC members may ask for a 0.5% reduction, but the markets are calling a 0.25% reduction. So the good news is that actually you should see base rate come down. There's a very strong chance you're going to see base rate come down in May. The negative side to this is that actually the markets, so the swap rates, have already priced this in. So for those of you who are waiting for the next base rate meeting to see what happens, to then sort of hope that fixed rates are going to come down further, that's not going to drive a further reduction in fixed rates, okay? Movements in gilt rates, for example, would impact swap rates if we've got some kind of shock news on inflation data, unemployment data, that kind of stuff. This would really kind of have a bigger impact on swap rates. But base rate next month isn't going to have a huge impact here. So in terms of what's going on and why swap rates are coming down, so the first thing we need to be aware of is the gilt rates. The gilt rates have been coming down because the UK is now seen as a safer place to invest than maybe it has been seen compared to America, because obviously Donald Trump's over there making a right mess of things at the moment. And so people are pulling their money out of the US, looking for another safe haven in which to invest, and UK gilts are seen as being quite attractive. So we're not having to charge or offer such high interest rates to draw investors in, which means that our cost as a country of borrowing has come down. So that is really helping out here with swap rates. Now, on the reverse of that, a couple of things that we need to just be wary of, because I think it'd be very easy to be forgiven for thinking that we're on the home straight here in terms of rates just continually going down. But actually, I think there are going to be a few things when the MPC meet that they're going to be discussing, because they can't ignore these things. So first of all, they're going to be mindful of the fact that actually Trump's tariffs, while they're doing us a real favour in terms of gilt rates, are nonetheless inflationary. We saw last week that the OBR increased their inflation figures the year by 0.7%. That's going to be of concern to the MPC. Equally, the number of job vacancies and wages are holding out particularly well. So that's going to be very, very I won't say concerning, actually, that's probably overstating it, but bearing in mind a period of high inflation or higher inflation, where people are still getting pay rises and people are able to get jobs, relatively easily, that kind of is one of those kind of self-fulfilling kind of things where people can continue to support the cost of things going up, so inflation could continue. On the downside, we've also got the kind of growth forecast for the UK, which is looking pretty bleak. So the MPC are going to be keen to kind of try and boost the economy in any which way they can to try and drive things forwards, which goes in favour of base rate reduction. So I think it's fair to say that the kind of longer-term view is definitely base rate reduction in May. The markets are calling between 2 and 3. Including May's one for the rest of this year. But do watch this space. We're still in a very, very precarious position, notwithstanding the fact, we're obviously very focused on the fact that we've got Donald Trump over in America kind of unable to make his mind up about what he's doing, and therefore, very strong possibility that he might make a really kind of strange decision which could blow everything out of the water again. So I think what I'm getting to here in a really long way is that actually, if you're looking at interest rates, you're waiting for a fixed rate to come online that works for you. You're looking at the rates and you're thinking, well, they've come down quite a bit since I spoke to my broker, in the last 6 months. But I think they might come down further because things are precarious, because we don't really know exactly what's going to happen, and because the markets have already priced in May's base rate reduction or anticipated base rate reduction. My advice really would be take a rate now as a kind of worst case scenario. As I've told you so many times, and you guys know this, if the lender that you've applied to then drops their rates down before completion, you can move on to the new lower rate. But what you're going to be doing here is securing a rate at a level which is going to be lower than it would have been 6 months ago. It could come down further, but likewise, if things do go up again because of one of the many reasons that we've talked about, actually in that case your position is very much secured. Okay, so now I've given you all some good news and you're all feeling super positive. I'm going to wreck that by talking about the Renters' Rights Bill, because the Renters' Rights Bill is now in the committee stage, which means that the House of Lords Committee are now debating each clause in the bill over a period of days. So in the last 2 times that they've met, they've debated clauses 1 to 6, so they've only got another 140 to go. Apparently they're debating in quite a lot of detail, but this kind of gives you a kind of scale of the kind of level of conversation that's going on and actually how long this could all take. So what's happened so far? So the things that have been discussed and any changes that came out of it. So they discussed fixed term tenancies. No change to this. The government will not support any amendments that seek to lock tenants in for any period of time. According to the government, the tenants must have the flexibility to end tenancies when they need to. Student tenancies, there's going to be no change there either. The government do not believe that removing fixed terms will have a destabilising effect on the student rental market. They go on to say that the new possession grounds for A will give landlords confidence they'll be able to regain their property to move in other students in line with the academic year. If tenants leave a tenancy early, the landlords will be able to find new tenants to take their place, and no changes to the student tenancies. Now, in terms for changes to grounds for possession, another rejection from the government for an amendment which was backed by Shelter that would make all Section 8 grounds discretionary. So actually this one is a win for landlords. So there was an amendment on the cards which was to make all Section 8 grounds discretionary. Actually the government have said no. Their position is that we want landlords to have robust grounds for possession where there is good reason to take their property back. It is right that landlords have more certainty in some circumstances, for example, where a tenant owes more than 3 months' rent or a serious criminal offence has been committed. Now, also in the section of grounds for possession, Baroness Taylor rejected another amendment that would require landlords to pay compensation of the last month's rent if the landlord wished to move in or sell up to grounds 1 and 1A, saying it would not be right to go further and require landlords to pay the tenant compensation. A landlord who needs to sell or move into the property may be in financial difficulty themselves, and requiring them to forego the last month's rent would be an undue burden. So that's a real positive for landlords there. There are also calls to reduce the time period from 12 to 6 months before a property could be relisted to let after serving grounds 1 or 1A notice. So essentially, if you'd said to the tenant, I would need you to move out of the property because I'm going to move back into it, there was a proposal to reduce the time period that you would have to wait before you could relist the property for let, essentially from 12 months to 6 months. But actually the government the decision was taken, actually it's going to remain at 12 months because they felt that anything shorter than this really left this particular ground wide open to abuse, essentially. Now, also introduced via new amendments which were added at report stage were a new prohibition of rent in advance, which is covered by 2 clauses and ban all rent in advance for anything other than the initial rent period. So essentially any landlords who take lots of months up rent, and this is quite common practice, I think, for people who are particularly letting to foreign nationals who have recently come to the UK, so they have no track record. So a landlord's position is, look, I've got no way of checking anything about you, but actually if you pay me 6 months up front, I'm willing to kind of take a flyer on you because, you know, my risk is largely mitigated. That's no longer going to be possible, so that's a bit of a loss for landlords. Additionally, ground 4A for student HMOs will only be available if the tenancy was signed less than 6 months before the start date. So this means that for landlords who usually start signing up student tenants in or around October for the following September, they're now going to want to not do this because it would leave them exposed. They're going to be holding off to start signing new tenancies until around March time. So what that kind of does, I guess, is put well, it makes the whole thing more high octane, doesn't it? So there's going to be more students scrabbling around in a shorter period of time to try and secure accommodation, and there's going to be more landlords trying to kind of let accommodation as well. So not necessarily a good thing. There's also been a removal of defence for unlicensed HMOs. This is where a landlord would rely on a tenancy agreement, a term in their tenancy agreement as a defence against the offence to fail to have an HMO licence in place. The ability to do this is being removed. Another thing that was really ironed out is that guarantors will not be liable for rent payable after a tenant's death. So going forwards, if you're a guarantor and the tenant that you were guaranteeing passes away, you're then not liable for their rental income. So that's good if you're a guarantor, not so good if you're a landlord where your tenant's died and there's rent outstanding. So there you go. Like I say, that was really just the starting point here with clauses 1 to 6 being debated, and there's another 140 to get through. So at least we've got loads of content to be updating you on for the next 4 months. Like I say, you know, it is what it is. I think a lot of landlords that we spoke to when the Renters' Rights Bill really kind of first got announced, they were really up in arms over quite a lot of it. People seem to have settled down now and kind of become accepting of it, I think is probably the best word. So it's kind of like, do you know what, this is my business. I don't like it, but actually it is what it is. And, you know, we've all gone through so many changes over the last 10 years or so. It's just another round of changes, and landlords, as always, are so adaptable, so agile that they'll just figure out a way to work around it. But like I say, more changes will be discussed in the coming weeks and we will keep you posted. And that's everything for this week. Thank you for joining us. Hope you found it helpful. And as always, if you have any questions, or actually, if you've got anything you'd like us to cover off on the video as well, any burning questions, just give us a shout. Very, very happy to have a chat about whatever it is that's on your minds. And if you do want to have a chat with one of our brokers, who are just the loveliest people, by the way, and also very, very good at their jobs, you can always reach us 0345 345 6788. You can go on our website. There's a web chat thing that you can do, so you chat online with a person. I promise there's no robots involved at any stage. Or you can fill out an online inquiry and email in that way as well. So lots of ways to contact us. Enjoy this beautiful weather. Let this not be summer in April. May it continue on, and have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you same time next week.